Hello, Frankie. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk about your upcoming retreat at Wellbeing and your teaching as a yoga teacher and a Qi Gong teacher. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Salman. It's so wonderful to be here with you.
So you have an upcoming retreat at Wellbeing, which is a Tai Chi retreat. Would you like to give some information about what that is, how long it'll be for, and the types of things that you'll be exploring on that retreat with participants?
Absolutely. So the first weekend in May, May 2nd through the 5th, I will be leading a Tai Chi Qigong retreat at the Wellbeing Center. And we're really happy to be returning. The Wellbeing Center is an exquisite place to immerse yourself in all things of nature and also your own personal nature, to return to your own body and spirit and to renew yourself. And so I love to be there and I look forward to coming every year when we return. We're going to be coming in the spring. We found last year coming in the spring was such a lovely time to be there. And it gives us the opportunity to work both inside and outside comfortably with the practices. This Tai Chi Qigong retreat is focusing on several aspects of the practices. So Qigong is a large umbrella term, and often people are not aware of that. Qigong is a beautiful practice that is both, let's say three disciplines. It's movement, meditation, and healing. In the movement forms, there are many movement forms of Qigong, and Tai Chi is probably the most well-known of all of the movement forms here in the United States. And we will be doing a lot of Tai Chi. The longer form that I will be teaching is technically called the 24 short form, and that is the national form that is the most widely practiced form of Tai Chi in the country. I'm sorry, in the world, actually. And it's a really beautiful one to learn because it's a more condensed version of the longer forms. And so it's easier to memorize. And often in the beginning, people find that's the most overwhelming thing, is trying to memorize the longer forms if they're not used to memorizing movement that is sequenced together. But the beauty is when you learn it first, and when you practice in a group, you immerse yourself in the group. I often liken it to swimming with the dolphins. You don't have to know exactly where you're going. You'll just be going with the flow. And that's actually a very traditional way of learning Tai Chi. So students who have never done any Tai Chi before are absolutely welcome and encouraged to come. It is probably the most beautiful way to learn Tai Chi first in an immersed setting, because you'll be coming back to these forms each day that we're there practicing. And then the next aspect of Qigong is the meditation, and we will be doing meditation practices in the retreat. Um, the Probably the most well-known and very, very powerful Qigong meditation practice is something called small heaven, big heaven, or the microcosmic orbit, macrocosmic orbit. I will be working with different forms of meditation and breathing practices during the weekend. And although I have a plan, Selwyn, the way I teach is very much inspired by the students in front of me, by what they're working on, what their needs are, where we're going in the moment. So it will always be tailored to the individuals that come to the session. And then the third aspect of Qigong is self-healing. We could say healing in general, but for the weekend, I will be focusing on self-healing. I have studied a lot of Qi healing with my main Qigong teacher. And so let's say that probably the most famous form of healing known of Qigong is acupuncture. People are familiar with the acupuncture models. But we ourselves can do phenomenal work with the meridians by doing self-acupressure treatment, by working with the energy flow within our own body, and something that we call running Qi. So how we address how the energy flow is going through our body. And the definition of health in traditional Chinese medicine is that the blood flows smooth, Qi flows smooth. So we'll be diving into some of what does that mean and how can I explore that for my own health and well-being.
Wow, quite a lot there, Frankie. You managed in quite a short space of time to really, really pack that out. It was just beautiful and super. I think it might just be helpful to go back over some of that and just unpack some of it to people because I'm sure there's some really interesting nuggets there. And I'll just use my own experience of what really kind of stood out to me, and hopefully that's helpful to people listening too. Um, you talked well, firstly about meditation and this microcosm and macrocosm, the big sky or small sky or big clouds, small sky. Could you explain a little bit more about what you mean by that style of meditation or what principles that embodies?
Sure. I would say rather than a style, Selwyn, the macrocosmic, microcosmic orbit, or what we call small, sometimes it'll be called small heaven or a small heaven circle,
Mhm.
big heaven. These are specific practices that are very powerful because they work with the a combination of the meridians within our body. So what we could say is as we learn them, we learn how to not only feel the chi in our body, but to receive the chi and then to run the chi. What do I mean by running the chi? One of the best images for chi is to think of it like water, right? We're often likened to the flow of water in a river. So the chi throughout our body should be activated or excited. And yet, in that excitation, we want it to be balanced. And so the energy of our body should not be deficient, nor should it be excessive in any particular area. Either of those can cause some imbalance or trouble, physically or emotionally or mentally, difficult to concentrate, or maybe not enough energy to concentrate. Maybe too much energy stuck in the heart and too much energy in the head, we can't sleep, or not enough energy in the abdomen, I don't have good digestion, right?
Mhm.
Ideas like that. So then in the meditation practices, what we're wanting to do is find a way to quiet the mind. So the slogan or subtitle for my studio that I've had for many, many years is Strong Body, Quiet Mind. We want our body to be strong, but a strong mind needs to be quiet and calm. And so that all of the meditation practices help us find a breath flow that is soft, smooth, usually slow, thin, even, long. This is the state that happens when we come into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the place in which we not only rest and digest, but also play. And I like to talk about that because a really neat thing, Selwyn, is in Tai Chi, we don't say we perform Tai Chi. We say we practice Tai Chi or we play Tai Chi. So we say like Tai Chi players. And I like that very much because just recently, Stephen Porges, who's research doctor, and he talked about, you might be familiar with his work, that not only when we're in the parasympathetic nervous system is it what we've talked about being rest and digest, but he also brought about this very, very important principle of playing. And so when we do Tai Chi, it's not competitive. And the interesting thing is, even though it is a martial art, as we practice it, even if you were practicing it martially, the idea is to relax. The number one principle of Tai Chi is relaxation. And that's why it's often likened to a moving meditation. In the weekend together, we will be doing moving Tai Chi forms. We'll also be doing seated breathing forms, maybe some reclining. Those are very popular. We get to lie down, especially by that beautiful river, and hear the river and hear the birds as you connect with your own breath and your own body in deep relaxation. Sometimes, depending on the interest of the group, we might do walking meditations or even healing with trees. The macrocosmic orbit and microcosmic orbit are practices that we advance into as we learn how to come into the feelings of chi in our body and learn how to begin to move the qi. And they're ancient practices that are opening doorways to our modern world, for sure.
Uh, it's really interesting for me to hear this depth that you speak of and the principles that support some of the movement, like the playing. I have had some experience in yoga and also some experience in Qi Gong, and it's quite interesting because it feels like the movement in Qigong is quite a different type of movement than we do in yoga, where there's set postures and a routine. That sense of play that you talk about is really in that field of Tai Chi and Qigong, and it makes me think that the type of person that would be interested in coming is completely open to all stages because it doesn't require this sort of robust training beforehand to be able to practice or to play with it.
Right. That is true. So I have had students who are perhaps in a wheelchair. I've had students who are in their 90s, 80s to 90s. I've had students who are 8 or 12 years old. Tai Chi Qigong as yoga is open to everyone, no matter their physical condition. My main Qigong teacher, his name is Master Hao. He would say, if you are breathing, you can practice.
Hmm.
And the importance is both these disciplines of yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong that I teach are disciplines that first come from the mind. Even though we see them, we see these beautiful physical expressions of the body, the ability to concentrate and relax the mind, to focus the mind, is essential for all of the practices.
Yeah, it my singing teacher, who was also a yoga teacher, in singing, there is a lot of talk about support, where essentially you're using the breath to, aligning with the movement of the breath. And if you're before the breath or behind it, you're not quite in the optimum kind of place. But I remember when my singing teacher was giving me a few yoga sessions, uh, she was telling me to follow the breath, and she told me that that was the support.
Mhm.
What I took that to mean was if one has a busy mind and whatnot going on, having something for the mind to focus on,
Yes,
like the breath, is a
yes,
true support because you're not trying to quiet your mind or trying to stop your thought stream.
right,
Like it's
right.
a byproduct of you're putting your attention, including your mind, onto something that's tangible as the breath.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why we say, so in Tai Chi, the principle is sung, and that is a Chinese word meaning relaxation.
Hmm.
Um, Master Hao would say you can't teach someone to meditate, but you can help them learn how to relax. And I always tell my students meditation is a deep state of relaxation,
Hmm.
right? And learning to relax, there is something to that, in that there are some skills and some permissions that we need to give ourselves. Very, very often, especially adults, not so much children, but very often as adults, we benefit from being in environments where we're encouraged to let go. We're encouraged to relax. We don't realize we're holding our shoulders up tight. We don't realize we're clenching in our abdomen, right? We don't realize maybe, like I was working with a student this morning and I was helping her in her posture where she could have a deeper breath. And her face just lit up and she just was like, oh, I haven't felt my breath like this in so long, Frankie. And you know what? To me, that was the highlight of our whole session, just to feel that coming back home to that natural expansive state of who we are and who we are in our bodies.
Okay, can we explore that a little bit more when you mentioned it in your opening about the practice of coming back to who you truly are, and you just mentioned it there again. What do you mean by that?
Mm, yeah. So we have a sense of our inner self, and when we're most aligned, we are living from that source of our innermost self, and it's flowing. We have no, or minimal, let's say, minimal resistance to being in touch with that intrinsic nature. We have a sense of this, ah, what do I want to eat? This appeals to me. And this feels good to my body. Or how do I want to spend my day? When do I want to sleep? What do I want to read? Who do I want to spend time with? And our bodies are natural, like they want to move, they need sleep, they need good water, they need good nutrition. And I often say, again, back to the movement, that movement is a form of medicine. And a lot of people in our contemporary culture are far from their bodies and far from movement. And Tai Chi is a beautiful way to come back to feeling comfortable moving their body and to get strength as well as balance. Balance is number one thing that a lot of research talks about, what Tai Chi brings for our elderly, a renewed sense of balance. But back to a sense of ourself, what happens is we have a lot of external influences on our life, right? It might be a job, it might be cultural influences, it might be ideas that we have adapted from other people about who it is we should be, what we should be doing, how we should be doing it, how soon or how fast we should be doing it.
Yeah.
And all of these influences might pull us a little bit away from that quiet sense of our innermost being. And when we do these practices, it gives us that opportunity to become quiet, to feel our body, to feel our breath. And in that empty space, let's say, we start to feel more of who we really are. And so when someone is an experience of that, they have less inner conflict.
Mm.
That less inner conflict simply means they're coming more and more and more in line with their innermost being, their innermost self. And it feels really good, Selwyn. A lot of injury, not injury, well, it could be injury, but a lot of disease actually comes from that sense of inner resistance that we carry, right? Like maybe I feel like I should be doing this, I should be this way in my life, but that's not really, that's not really who I am in my nature, right? And so I carry that resistance. Sometimes we don't have to change the outer conditions as much as we think. Sometimes it's about how we're approaching these outer conditions. Sometimes it's about how we're approaching ourselves, right? And so having practices where we have the opportunity to not be so externally focused, but we get to actually feel. We get to feel our feet on the earth. We get to feel the movements of our hands. We get to feel the rise and fall of our breath is so soothing and so wonderful of an opportunity for us to let go of external influences. So the idea is everything we need is inside of us already. We don't have to go somewhere else to find out from someone else who we are, right? A lot of people make a lot of money trying to do that for people,
Mm.
right? And that's unfortunate because the best situations are when we gather together and support each other in ways to help us come back to an understanding that we have what we need within ourselves. And it's a matter of giving ourselves that time and space to listen in. I think Don and Patty have something on their website so beautiful about like to walk softly on the earth, right?
Mhm.
And if we walk softly, we are aware of the earth. When we have these practices and we're soft with ourselves and we let go for a few moments of having to be very busy doing other things, we get an experience of being and being softly with ourselves, which is really maybe not a common place for many people to be. Often, when we are within our own thoughts, right, we tend to be maybe self critical. We tend to be very agenda oriented or pushing what, I need to check off these 20 things on my to do list.
Mhm.
And to just be like, well, right now I'm just going to feel my breath and lift my hands and lower my hands and feel the roots of my feet into the earth, or feel how there's a beautiful phrase. We have the energy of the earth, the energy of the sky, and the energy of the body is one.
Yeah.
Well, to feel that. Ah, now we start to feel who we are as an integral part of nature. And that's a very powerful thing to feel, isn't it?
Yeah, and it feels like, really resonated with me what you were talking about inner conflict. And, it feels like a normal response if there's difficult emotions or whatnot to go outside of ourselves and try to distract ourselves from that. Um, but actually having some tools, let's say, to be
Yes.
able to be with what's arising, or at least maybe if there's, I don't know, tension in the belly, to do a little bit of movement. Yeah, it feels like those are truly valuable gifts to be able to develop,
And
especially
to be
if,
able to know, like you're
yeah,
saying, if there's tension in the belly, to know, oh, that's what is happening. I feel I have tension in my belly.
yeah,
Ah, if I can feel the tension in my belly, maybe I can pause and give myself an opportunity to relax the tension in my belly. Just like with the singing, right?
yeah.
You notice, ah, I notice. Now I can do something. I can make some choices. If we never take the moment to slow down enough to feel our bodies, then it's very difficult to make change, even the changes that we so desperately want.
Mm, sure. And I feel that that's one of the great benefits of retreat is that, you have an opportunity to step outside of all of that for a few days and come into a new environment where your needs are taken care of, your immediate needs, your food and your housing and your lodging and the teaching and the structure, and you can fully give yourself that gift and be present for new potentials to unfold.
Beautifully, beautifully said. And Selwyn, one of the things I haven't talked about here that might be of value to
Sure.
people listening is I have dedicated a good amount of the last few years to studying and working with people who have survived trauma.
Mhm.
And that's a passion of mine. So when we do come home to our body, if we have experienced trauma or to our breath, it can at times be a little intimidating, right?
Sure.
Right. And so these practices are so wonderful to help us find a way to come back. And there's a beautiful phrase that I love, not too fast, not too much, not too fast, and with adequate support. And the practices themselves can give us some of that support. Also, as you're saying, the retreat, to have our basic needs met and to be in a like-minded community of people who support us because they also are on this path together, right? So the Taoism is a very much a keystone of Tai Chi practice, and the Tao, of course, being the way. So when we're walking on this way together, there's no end. There's nothing about being perfect, but it is this beautiful, beautiful journey and this beautiful path. And when we take time to retreat together or to retreat together at times in the classes and then enjoy a lot of alone time or time in nature, that's another option for the participants. It's so beautiful because there aren't that many times in life for most of us where we get to unplug that way.
Hmm. Yeah, and it feels like for somebody who, has never experienced Tai Chi or Qi Gong, and there is truly that potential for them to connect with themselves in a new way.
Yes. So, one of the things I have told people in the past about the retreats at the Wellbeing Center is um, it is not camping. I always say it's really glamping, but glamping in the most pristine natural place, right? In that, like as you're saying, our basic needs are taken care of at Wellbeing Center, but you guys do far more than that. You do that in a five-star way. The food is delicious, the tiny houses and the cabins are exceptional to be in. And so we have this place of beauty and aesthetic support that really, I think, our spirit thrives, and that helps us connect with nature.
Mhm.
And then we have the opportunity to move and to breathe and to come back to a feeling of exploration. And if you feel strong, Wonderful. If you feel weak but want to get stronger, wonderful. If you feel weak or strong but don't know how to begin, that's what is so beautiful. I always tell students that's my part, that's my responsibility. We'll be doing Tai Chi forms. We'll be doing meditation forms. We'll be also doing some self-healing forms. I'm going to be working with particularly two meridians this weekend coming up, the triple warmer and the heart protector. I love the name, the heart protector, just in and of itself. And the triple warmer is something I'll talk quite a bit about at the retreat, but it's wonderful for our creating balance in the body. Balance, especially important right now for so many people for hormones and for autoimmune. So autoimmune is a big concern for a lot of people. And we might sometimes think about, oh, I want to get more qi, which is our vital life force energy. But my teacher often would say, it's not just about getting qi, it's about conserving qi.
Mm,
And, you know, when I think of that, when we're in a place as beautiful as the Wellbeing Center, where we're conscious of conservation, it helps us understand how important conservation is for our own body, for our own health.
yeah,
That as we get energy, it's not just about spending energy. You know,
yeah,
if we're growing trees, it's not just to grow them to cut them down. It's
yeah.
to enjoy them, yes? And then to enjoy the vitality of our own life. You know, how incredible is that?
Frankie, thank you so much for this yeah, really in-depth insight into your work and what you offer on retreat. There is a plethora of information online about you on Wellbeing's website, and people can see from your name how wonderfully qualified you are in yoga and Tai Chi and whatnot. And I just would like to finish by, you know, asking you what moves you to do this work? Or what was it for you that got you so interested to take this path of deep um, research and sort of
Yeah.
exploration of the body?
Yes. That's a great question. Thank you, Selwyn. So I was a dancer. I'm an modern dancer and choreographer. And in my very early 20s, I became very fascinated by Eastern philosophy. And so it became very natural for me once I started to explore Taoism, for instance, to, as a mover, want to experience the movement forms of Tai Chi. And that became a lifelong process since then. When I first started doing Tai Chi and Qigong, I went to them because I like to say I'm a movement junkie. As a dancer, you know, all movement is just divine to me and something I love to explore, and I love the diversity of it. I do want to say, for the way I teach and the way I practice, I am not a person who blends yoga and Tai Chi Qigong, because I find that the purity of each of the traditions is phenomenal within in itself. However, within one session, say if I'm working with someone privately, I might be teaching them something from Qigong, discipline, I might be teaching them something from the yoga discipline. Does that make sense?
Sure, sure.
Rather than kind of watering it down into a commonality, because the detail of the practices is so powerful. However, when I tell people, when they ask me which I prefer, I say, oh, I cannot say, because we have this beautiful body, we have this beautiful mind, and we have this beautiful spirit. And as long as we're diving authentically and openly into our practice with that, then it's just language, right?
Mm,
So if I'm quieting my mind and I'm moving my body, then, you know, you hear some people call yoga Chinese, Chinese Qigong, or, Indian Qigong, and some people call Qigong, the other.
yeah,
Uh, I don't mind that as a phrase, as a philosophy, because if I'm doing this movement authentically and with intention, that's the key, intention, with all offering and opening to all of my being, not like watching the news as I'm doing my steps, right? because then I'm not able to really embrace the fullness of who I am in the moment, right? So when I started, I'm going to come back to that question, but when I started studying Tai Chi, I'm going to focus on that for this retreat. I became very interested in the healing practices of the Tai Chi as the yin to the yang of the martial practices. And I actually looked for a long time to find a teacher who could really open some of that doorway for me to share that wisdom. And when I found my teacher, Master Tianyao Hao, who came to the United States from Beijing, I met him when I was in graduate school in Cleveland, Ohio. I knew my wishes had been granted, and I am very, very blessed to have studied with him. And I received my master certification with him. And we went to a few trips to China and to Tibet with some students. Um, but it changed my life because I realized that I had been pushing a lot. You know, in the field of dance, no one says, "Oh, are you tired, Frankie? Would you like," right? Would you like a break? Would you like to lie down and meditate? Right? These concepts do not exist, right? And so I was very much pushing my body, very, very much pushing from an outer goal and a beautiful goal, an aesthetic goal, but not necessarily listening. And I had been working with some injuries and just really not knowing how to care for myself, you know, all of me. And when it came to this, the practices, I realized that this was real strength, inner strength and an inner quietness. And then I was able to fold that into my dancing. You know, people wouldn't know, but I changed the approach that I was taking within myself. You know, how did I look at competition or how did I look at how hard to push? And so much of that is in our mental focus, isn't it? And in our heart. So I learned a great deal about self-care and I myself came to some of the trauma work authentically. So the practices really gave me a grounding and a way back to really celebrating, you know, being here now.
Yeah, I can feel that. And just feels really quite special that you're able to offer this work to others, and to celebrate them too.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I
Thank
hope anyone who's interested feels comfortable coming. If they have any physical concern they want to share with me ahead of time, they can email me through the Wellbeing website. There's some information there. Or if they want to share anything about their own concerns before we meet together, I would love that. But I really want people to know whether you're a very inexperienced practitioner in this or you're brand new and you're just curious and you want to come together for a wonderful weekend, please join us.
thank you so much, Frankie, for taking the time to speak with me today.
It's my pleasure, Selwyn, and I can't wait to be there with you again soon.
Thank you.